Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's had a safe week. This has been a week for Hobo. I hope everybody's doing well. Hope you're happy, healthy, and well fed, and ready to have. I'm going to be looking at a couple of projects, showing you a couple of things I've done, show you what's going to be an upcoming video, and talk about that and with how it was made. And then we're actually going to take a few minutes and design the base of the windmill in Lightburn. Now, the windmill was suggested by, and I'm sorry, my memory is just not there. I think was it Dale? I don't know if you're here, but I think Dale asked about windmill design, and I've played with a few bases, and I don't like either one of those. But I've learned some things, and we're gonna draw my third attempt tonight in the live, and maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll be entertained, and then like I said, I'm really proud of that doohickey. So we got 70 of you here already, and I see that a few of you here that are not normally here until about halfway through. So, yay! Congratulations. You get a gold star for being on time. I'm not going to go through a roll call yet. I see Dale Dubs is here, but I don't know if Dale Dubs is the one to ask about the windmill or not. Looking at just the comments right out of the gate here, and then I'll set a mark. Everybody just saying hey and how are yous and where you from. Okay. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to put a mark just so I know that I've got to this point. All right. So this week, like I said, I worked on a couple of different ideas on the windmill, and this piece is actually a planter. And I made that out of trash. Literally, I made it out of trash. And I'm really proud of this piece and proud of the design. And this is going to be a video I'm going to do for next week. I'm going to make another one and make it completely from scratch, from the trash. And I'm not going to so much be doing one of the how-tos. So it'll be more of just a, hey, look at what I'm doing. And you can just watch the process. I won't be explaining anything. In fact, probably might not even have much of me talking in it. It's probably just a lot of processing and assembly, and maybe some good music to listen to. And when I say this is made out of trash, my neighbor across the street just took down a big cedar privacy fence, and was 6 feet, at least 6 feet, and it was rough, real rough. That's why he took it down. And he stacked it all up there, and it's been sitting there for about 2 or 3 months. And I just asked him, the old one, I said, what are you going to do with all that? And he said, as soon as I can get me a truck big enough, I'm going to haul it all to the dumpster. And I'm like, man, that's a shame. That's a lot of valuable wood. It's going to take a lot of work to make something out of it. But, it's cedar. So I said, well, do you mind if I go and pick pieces off of it while it's laying there? And he said, as long as it's laying there, you can help yourself. He said, take it all. He said, you want me to move it over to your yard? I'm like, no, don't do that. But to give you an idea, this is the top of one of the fence posts, and you can see how aged and rugged it is. Lots of cracking. In fact, you can see daylight through that one. It's split, practically in half there. And that's what I did. I took this 6-foot privacy fence, whacked the top off of it, and then where it had the nails and the strips in it, cut those out, and ended up with well, I didn't think about grabbing this. Let me grab this. So I ended up with strips like this. This one was one of the leftovers. I cut up 16-foot lengths, 16-inch lengths, because that 16-inch was as big as I could fit in my rollie. Then I planed one side of it and then glued those together to get a piece like that. It was going to be 16 inches by about, once I planed it and glued them up, it was about 10 and a half inches wide. And I was like, okay, that's nice. I got a nice piece of cedar. Now what do I do with it? So I glued it all up, not knowing what I was going to do with it. And then I had the idea of some succulents. When I think of that, I always I immediately think succubus. And I'm like, no, that was the ex-wife. Succulents. I thought that'd be a good way to display them. And the little boxes, they're also made out of trash. You've heard me mention West Penn Hardwoods in Conover, North Carolina. WP Hardwoods, I think, is their website. But West Penn Hardwoods, if you Google them, he is North America's largest importer of exotic hardwoods. I mean, he's got it all. If you're in the area, if you're within an hour, 2-hour driving distance, it's worth your time to schedule your trip up there and plan on spending at least an hour in there looking around. But he sells or has sold to Rockler and all of the other specialty woodlot shops. And they usually sell strips like this that are 2 foot by 3 inches and have varying thicknesses, anything from an 1/8 to a 1/4. But he ends up having, when he's processing these pieces, he'll have a piece like this. This is 21 inches long. He can't sell this to those. And he doesn't sell this in his own inventory. So this is a cutoff. This is the end piece. And there's bunches of these, bunches and bunches and bunches of them. And they've been run through the processor. It's just they're not long enough to get put with his 24-inch stuff. So he ends up with a big pile of this stuff that he throws into a big old box and puts them on a pallet. And they're down at the checkout. If you go to West Penn Hardwoods, you need to go to their project pack section and then go to their checkout section. The checkout section in the very back of the building is where they'll have specials like this. And if you can't find what you want in the project packs, then these a lot of times these pieces will sell for, $15, $20 a piece. But that's for the 24-inch, the 2 foot ones. But this junk, this waste, then he'll sell them for $1, $2 a piece. Because he can't sell them otherwise. So anything he gets out of them is pennies from heaven. So go to the project pack section and go back to the checkouts and look for these cutoffs. Because I bought up a bunch of these. This is 1/4-inch hard maple, beautiful wood, and I got it for like $1. And I used that to make these little boxes. And this one was the first one, and it was a screw up. Because what I did is I opted to put the panel. If you notice the panel, the bottom of it is not slots and fingers. It's done like a drawer. I actually cut a slot in the bottom of it and then assembled 3 sides and slid this in and then put the face on it. But this one was a screw up because this was the first one I ever did. And I put the notches in it and you can actually see them there. And I said, got to redo those so that the tab is tab, slot, inverse the order so that that's covered up. And that's what I've got with these. You can't see that slot. But this is made so this will notch. In fact, let's see. Here's the first one I did. And the base designs like so, and I did some engraving on this. And this little box will just slip into that hole just barely, because I just barely had clearance for it. And I do mean barely. There we go. And once that's in, those little ears just slide down and hold it in place. We'll get it lined up. There we go. Now that's not going anywhere. And I've got that one sitting on an easel, and I'll probably end up putting those little spacers, the standoffs, to get it off the wall, because these stick out, protrude past. There we go, protrude past the back. So put some pieces up here to get it to stand off, and then you can actually mount a hanger on it too, so you can hang it and or display it on the easel. But this will be a nice video coming next week. And like I said, the windmill design, started on it, and we're going to do that here in a little bit. And I'm just going to look and see if there's any questions or comments since my last mark here. And again, guys, if you have a question, precede your question with a question mark and then your question. That way it jumps out at me. Otherwise, I'd be forever, because it's just me. I don't have anybody who's helping me with the editing or monitoring. So, I just scan. So I'm not ignoring your comments or any of that. I'm just looking for question marks. Chris, all good. Tornado missed us by about 30 miles, and I got to see the Aurora Borealis last night. Chris, you're down in Aussie, right? You're down under. You had a tornado that missed you by a couple of miles? Well, that's same thing for me and Jack. And I don't see Jack in the shop. I hadn't seen him in here yet. He'll probably be here. Jack and I, we had a tornado go between us. Jack was on the north side of the tornado, and I'm on the south side of the tornado. That's why I said this week has been a challenging week. April last month. Yeah, I was sick as a dog all month long. And then this week, Monday, or I don't know what day it was now. Monday or Tuesday one, my camper flooded, the RV flooded. And then somebody in the comments or an email said, "I'm sick," and then you flooded. What's next? Or what more can a man stand? Well, you had to ask that because it had a tornado come through. And that, now I wasn't directly hit by any of the directly from the tornado, but all of the after effects. No power, no internet. Power's been sporadic. Power was off yesterday for an hour. And if we go dead, if I go black here in the middle of the live stream, just know the power went out again. Let's see here. Stacy says, I love that planter and box holder. How do I cut that out on 400 by 400 warp bed? Well, that's what this is. This is, about 16 inches square, or almost 400 by 400. Might be a little bit bigger. And then speaking of which, I got my XW pre-ordered. I got in on the pre-order on the first batch, so hopefully that'll be coming. I don't know if I'll see it before the anniversary or not. Yeah, and Stacy, you said you wished you had a store near you. They ship. They in the United States and the continental U.S., they'll ship it to you. And on a lot of the projects, they even have free freight. If you spend X number of dollars, they don't even charge you freight to send it to you. And if you tell them that Hobo sent you, I ain't gonna get a dime from it. But you just tell them that I've been talking about it and about the project packs and about their cutoffs and their waste down there. You're not going to have the ability to walk over there and go hand picking through the stuff. But if you tell them, hey, if you've got those cutoffs at $1, $2 a piece, whatever, send me 40 or 50 bucks worth. They're going to send you good stuff. And then you do like I did. I had I had this piece. I was like, that's good wood. What am I going to do with it? I have no idea. I had no idea of making these maple planters until I needed it. But then I had the wood. So, they'll ship to you. Question mark. There's Matthew with the question. Hey, Steve, how many files can you save in your Lightburn art library until it starts to fill up or start slowing stuff down? I would say that's probably has more to do with your computer that does the Lightburn. Your memory capability, I would say, is what's going to make things run slower. And again, I'm not a technical guru. I will never profess to be. I can tell you about my personal experiences when all these people are, and a lot more people are complaining to me since 1.6 come out about all kinds of problems they're having. And almost every time they're on a laptop. And a ton of you are on laptops, and a ton of you are saying, I'm on a laptop and I ain't have no problems. Everything works fine for me on a laptop. You don't, it ain't, but I'm telling you guys, Lightburn is not laptop friendly. And it all comes down to the majority of the reason is it has to do with the resolution of the laptop. And while everybody, like today, I had an email today. I've had probably 4 or 5 this week with, hey man, I've updated to 1.6 and it's not working right, or I can't dock this, or I can't. And it's usually little gremlins. It's not like it's usually not major issues. My library files are gone. Well, it just needs to be remapped. You can't dock this. Well, that has to do with the resolution of your laptop. But it was working fine before. Well, they updated the software. And when they updated the software, maybe they did something, made a change that's no longer working with yours. So, but it's not a problem for me on my desktop. I haven't had any of the issues these people are referring to. So, but when it comes to slowing down your system, that would probably be more about your system than it is about your software. Martin says they had a tornado within a mile. Yeah, I tell you. And I walked out. It was raining something fierce. And before I start this design here, I'm going to show you a quick 2-minute video I made up of all the local damage. And at the end of it, I had walked out on my front porch about the time the tornado was going through and taking a video of the rain coming down in sheets and coming down sideways. And there wasn't a ton of lightning going on, but there was one, and it was right outside my front door. And that was the closest I've ever been, and closest I don't ever want to be again. And it was the craziest thing I don't know if you'll see it in this video, but before the lightning and the thunder, the entire ground of my front yard and my truck's in the foreground of the video, everything below the bed of the truck, above the bed of the truck didn't do it, but from the bed down, the entire ground area lit up bright pink, like a great big pink plasma ball. And that's when I felt the heat. It's a big flash of pink and heat, and then the lightning crash, and the flash and thunder. And it unfortunately, it wasn't right in view of the camera. It was just off, and it scared the snot out of me and like to mess my britches. Let's see here. John says, just become a gold patron member this week. Major mom layer project, but made it 8 layers and changed up the inside of things. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for your support. It is greatly appreciated. Will a laser cut a 45-degree angle? I just started with my MK2 and new to lasering. No. A laser shoots in a straight line, and you can't change your angle of your position on your laser on your gantry without some serious modifications. And then that's going to be cross. But someone I used to work with claimed that they could do it. They had made a special jig that they would take and put the wood in. So it was, let me grab my jig right here. If you had a jig, something like this, that had a 45 in it, that you could take and put that wood in there like that. Let me get a better piece of wood. Put that wood in there like that. And there's your first problem. Is it going to stay there? No, that ain't going to stay there. The wood's too tall. So you'd need, and if you went and made your jig any bigger, then you're going to have problems with clearance with the laser module. And so you'd have to rig it up so you had something that would support this. But then you would have to get your laser position just right, and it would go down and cut a 45. And then you would do the same thing in the other direction, and you could have 2 45s. But I never seen his jig, He never showed it. Everything he talked about was theory, and I never seen it in practice. And honestly, for the amount of work that you'd have to do to make it happen, if you could pull it off, I don't think it'd be worth it. Instead of the 45, and I would do. Well, let me grab another box. Instead of doing a 45, and this one isn't one of my best ones. This was one of my first ones. I did these, and this is all. I don't know if this was maple or if this is maple, but it wasn't hard maple. And I did it so that the attempt was to sand all of that away, sand all the burn marks away. But because the end grain, even when you're sanding it's going to have a different look to it. So it's not the dark burnt lines like I've got on the sides here, but I sand those burn marks off and then round it over, make like a pillow top to it or something, and try and blend that in so it's not just a finger joint. And then like I did on the sides here, I actually didn't even put any fingers in it. I just kind of butted them up to each other. That's a different look. But 45 with a laser, short answer, no. Long answer, maybe, but you're not going to do it with a big piece because you don't have room unless you got an open gantry machine. And again, it's just not going to be worth the time and trouble to figure it all out. Not in my book. Yes. Martin, I do have a link. Let me copy it. Where are you? There you are. Copy, paste, post, paste. All right, so it's in the comments there, Martin. I just posted it. It's wphardwoods.com. Here's old guy. I have it on two laptops. My better model Dell works perfectly. Got a cheap Acer to use in the shop, and it has a few quirks I had to figure out, but it works fine. And yeah, it's not that it won't work. It just works with gremlins, and they're sometimes you can work around them and you don't pay them. Like the one was a problem I had this week, which I had. You couldn't dock the tabs back into position. Like if you had the camera controls drilled out of Lightburn, and you had laser controls and cuts and layers, you're supposed to be able to dock all those into each other and just see the tabs at the bottom. Well, for some reason, eventually they become undockable. You can't stack them back in top of each other, and you end up having separate little windows for all these controls everywhere, or you just have to close them and open them as you need them. And it's little things like that are laptop problems. And again, and this comes from Oz, from the owner of Lightburn. From his lips to my ears, the reason those problems exist have a lot to do with the resolution of the laptops. Those were his comments. I understand what he's talking about, but I don't understand why it's a problem because I'm not that technical. Those are just what he shared with us. Ask the Lightburn guy about laptop use. I have no problem, I think. Yeah, and a lot of people don't have problems. And then some of the problems are so minor that people learn to use Lightburn with that problem, and they don't even realize it's actually a problem. Well, T-Man, I got a gaming computer. I bought one it's a, was it, no, not iPower. It was, yeah, it is. iBuyPower. I got it during the Black Friday special, Christmas before last. And I got something with, and I don't, again, I'm not technical. I don't remember all the specs about it, I just know it had a really high graphic or big graphics card, and I expanded the RAM in it. And it's not water cooled or nothing like that, but it was a pretty powerful little gaming computer, and I got it for a good deal during Black Friday. And I have not had any gremlins with it at all. So you suggested desktop over laptop. Yeah, for Lightburn, yeah. Now, and it's kind of a little bit of an inconvenience, because if you've got I've got machines here and I got machines in the other room, and eventually I want to be working. That's the CNC, and I'm planning to use Mill Mage on it, and I'm expecting them probably to have the same problems, the same gremlins. I don't know, but I'm not going to be able to carry my desktop back and forth. So that's the convenience of having a laptop and moving around from machines to machines. And people do it, and I'm pretty sure Clack works off of a laptop. I'm pretty sure in his videos you see him working on a laptop, and he may or may not have experienced any of these gremlins. But like I said, they're usually not so life-threatening or inability to use it. You can't. It's not that you can't use it. It's just that you're going to have gremlins, and you got to figure out what to do about them. Don't feed them after midnight, and don't get them wet. All right. Yeah. Question marks. Windmill, birdhouse, water tower, Dale Linden. Okay. Yep. And that's what I'm working on, the windmill now. And we're going to get into that right here. In fact, because I just got to the bottom of all them comments, put me another little set of asterisks, so I know I've got down to there. Actually, let's check out this video of this damage here in my neighborhood, and it's all over the county. We actually had 2 tornadoes go through. One that was 22 miles from one county over into our county, and the other one was, and it shows the path on here. The other one was on about 8 miles or so long, and that was the one that was closest to me. And here we'll take a look at this real fast, and then we'll go into the where we comment off. We'll go into the Lightburn and start designing some stuff. All right, so this is one of the major highways here in town, one of the thoroughfares, and I think there's a red car in here that's buried. And they're being diverted around it. Telephone poles down, or power poles down everywhere. There's where the tornado touched down, actually. It took all the trees out. That's a U-Haul truck standing or flipped on its side. That's one of the major thoroughfares through town, US 321. And that's also a major bridge that crosses over 85 that shut down with bridges or trees all over the bridge. There's the 2 paths. That last one was 8 miles long. And there's that red car in there. This is just a short video of the same first photograph. There's the red roof. Would not want to have been in that car going down the highway. That would have been scary. More power poles down. And that was our most inconvenience. Power out everywhere. Power, internet. That's the city parking lot. There's the snow plows. And the town I'm in is a Tree City, USA. And they love to brag about all the trees we got until we get something like this. And then all the trees are down everywhere. That's from the local news helicopter. Not a lot of deaths, though. I think there was only one or two reported deaths from this. Relatively speaking, it wasn't huge compared to what you have in the Midwest. So that was what we just went through day before yesterday. And Brandon, I'm probably 2 miles south of that, and I think Jack in the shop that you guys see in the comments here and on quite regularly, and others, he's everywhere. Surprised he's not here. I think it's a couple of miles south of him, and it was 2 miles north of me. It split the two of us. Yeah, we're not going back. Yeah, Chris, I remember him saying that now he's using a former, he's using something powerful. All right. So you've seen her, Stacy. She was on my lap. She was scared to death in that. And I don't normally bother. I don't normally worry about storm warnings and stuff like that, but this one looked pretty serious, and the tornado watches or warnings that were out there. I went and warned my neighbors next door that the tornadoes warnings were out there, and I left the RV and came into the shop. And within 15 minutes of that's when the tornado went through. Now my RV is pretty well protected behind some buildings, and no trees around it. So, and it worst thing that could happen, it get knocked over on its side. And that has happened in some of the campgrounds I've been in. But and yeah, she's good. She did not like it. And just to correct you, Ed, her name is Good Girl. Good Girl is her name, and her initials are GG. GG. And you don't want to upset a woman. Don't call her by the wrong name. Don't ask her weight, and don't ask her her age. So GG. And as far as her needing some screen time, when she crawled up in my lap voluntarily during that storm, was the first time she's done that in probably 3 or 4 years. I have to beg her to come let me give her some loving. She is not a lap dog, by no means. So for her to jump there, she was terrified. All right, let's jump over into Lightburn, and we're going to go design a windmill stand. And I teased you, we're not going to go to Lightburn first because I don't just jump in and start designing something. In fact, let's grab these two. This one I didn't like because it was too short and too stubby. And this one I didn't like because the cross beams were too bulky. And with them being as bulky as they are, I kind of liked the aspect ratio of it, if you will, the width, and but these were too bold, and so that made it look like it was smaller than what I was wanting to project it as. So before I started on these, I was like, well, how big is a windmill, and what are its dimensions to begin with? So I went to, let's see here. You go bye-bye. You can go away. I don't need you, but I do need you. There you are. Open you up, bring you on the screen, share screen. So this is rockridgewindmills.com. Rock Ridge Windmills. They sell windmills. And in their windmills, in their tab here, they talk about all the windmills and tower sizes. And they say the windmills are measured in wheel diameter. An 8-foot windmill is 8 foot when measured across the blades. So an 8-foot diameter. So, okay, that's good to know. And then it says, as a general rule, the tail extends out from the motor about the same distance as the wheel diameter. So an 8-foot windmill tailbone and tail vane extends out about 8 foot from the middle of the tower. And you're like, really? Why is this relevant? Well, because when I do my designs, I would like things to be proportional. And so if I've made a an 8-inch fan, which would have been the 8-foot windmill, but only did a 4-foot tail on it, then it's not going to look right. You'd not look at it and say, okay, well, that's a windmill, but it's not going to look like what you would expect it to see, because it would not be truly proportional to what your eye has seen everywhere you see a windmill, because the motor and the tail section stick out from the center of the windmill as large or as far as the diameter of the fan. So let's see here. And then also, how tall is the tower? And then it comes down here, windmill size, 8-foot windmill, 8-foot windmill. And then here's the 3 different images of an 8-foot windmill on 3 different tower sizes, a 21-foot, a 27-foot, and a 33-foot. And when I look at those, I'm like, okay, well, this 8-foot on a 21-foot, that's a little stubby thing, and I really don't want to build a little stubby thing. And that one, to me, it just looks like the fan was too small, or the windmill was too small for the tower. But that looks good. That's what I want to build. And so I said, okay, so 27-foot tower with an 8-foot fan. So when I do my designs and creations, I actually do a little bit of, there's thought put into the process. So I'm wanting to do an 8-foot windmill with a 27-foot tower. Obviously, we can't design a 27-foot tower in Lightburn. And before I jump over there, Eric says, it sucked. I'm in Gaston County also. Many were 3 days, no power. Yeah, and school's out and all kinds of fun things. And Stacy, yeah, are there counterweight issues so it won't tip? And that's probably a lot of it. And that's another reason why I want to design it, as true to life as possible, because this is about the correct dimensions that I'm going to have as far as the width of the base and how narrow I want it to come to. And my base is going to be equivalent to the 8-foot fan. So the fan up here is going to be as wide as the base is. And it's going to stick out just a little bit past the front. But because of how big that is, and it's only going to be mounted on a single post, it's got to be balanced. And so, yeah, I'm designing that whole big thing. So, yeah, that's all part of it. And I'm sure that's why they're built like that as well. This one, yeah. Jeff, those do look like oil towers. They look like derricks. That's absolutely correct. And that's why I said, yeah, I don't like that. As big and bulky as they are, they look more like old derricks, oil towers. Phil, I'll just address this quickly because I can't address it. I have heard of some people having to replace their home and switches. You need to reach out on the Facebook Rolly Automation group and tag Dimitri in the Facebook group, and he will get back to you really quickly. And most likely he will do a FaceTime with you through Facebook and get you up and running like that. But tag Dimitri in the Rolly Automation Facebook group. If you're not in that group, you should be. That's your best technical support anywhere. You reach out, you put your post in there, what your problem is. Hey, Dimitri, please help. And he'll get back to you. All right. Now we're jumping into Lightburn because we got some figures to play with. I just put another set of hashtags in there, or asterisk in there. And now let's get in here. I mean, hey, we're only 40 minutes into this. Why not? Let's start designing. So if I'm going to do a tower, I'm going to start with a rectangle, not a square, a rectangle. And I know that I want it to be 8 feet across the bottom. And then I want it to be 27 feet tall. So, let's see. We're going to do, I've got those set up on 1/2 inch. So we're going to sell it 4 inches wide. And if I want it to be 27, I want it to be 13.5 tall. So that is at a, what a 2-to-1 ratio. Is it 2-to-1 or 1-to-2? 2-to-1. And it's not one to snap into my grid, which that's fine. I'm not going to be using the grid much anyway. And speaking, I've not had any problems with the computers and Lightburn. If you start seeing things jumping around like that just did, ever since the power went out and the power's going on and off, on and off, off, on and off, I've been having some glitchy things going on with the computer. I've shut it down, rebooted it 2 or 3 times, but that's what if you see something funky, it's like, wait a minute, what's that? Well, lightning might have done something to my PC. I don't know. Lightning or just the power surges. All right, so there is my basic rectangle, but now I need to turn it into a pyramid shape. This is not going to change. I'm going to keep that at, that's going to be 8 feet, which is in this case 4 inches. Up here at the top, first I'm going to need to convert it to a path. Right click, convert to a path, show my nodes, come in here and hit the letter M for middle again and again. So middle. So that just gave me all those nodes. And now I'm going to select these 2 and hit the letter D for delete, and there, D for delete. And I think that is a good profile. If I look at that versus that, and my computer just stopped again. There we go. I think, and because I'm looking at that base right there, I'm going to build up to that. And so from there down, that looks like what I've got going on is a pretty good profile. All right, so there is the profile of the tower. Now, if we go back there and look again, you've got these cross members. You've got the bottom, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cross members going up the tower, and we're at 13.5. So what's that? Well, my brain is not working that well. 13.5, not 1350, 13.5 divided by 4. It's 3.3 feet per piece. So we're going to just say 3.5 for right now. So I'm going to draw a straight line. And actually, you know what? I wished this would snap. And I've got my snap to grid on. And that's close. All right, draw a straight line. I'm gonna come up. This is on here, about here. Hold my shift key, draw a straight line over, and then I think it's about there, and about there. And that looks pretty good. It's not exact, but that's close. Now I'll do from this bottom corner, get my crosshairs, come up, go up here and get my crosshairs. And I double clicked, didn't mean to. Crosshairs again, and again. And here. All right. So there is the beginnings of my windmill tower. And I'm going to do this out of 3mm wood. So if I'm going to have 3mm and I'm going to have slots and tabs in there of another piece of 3mm, then I need this to be at least 6mm to have a really good, strong outer frame. So I'm going to select just the outer piece of this only, and I'm going to do an offset, both inward and outward. And I need to cancel. I need to go into metric, switch over to millimeters. Now go back to my offset. And I asked them to put that right here to where you can toggle between inches and millimeters. At the same time, I made some of the other suggestions, and they either forgot it or didn't feel like it was worthy. But now I'm going to come up here, and I'm doing an inward and outward offset, and I want it to be 6mm total. So I'm going to do a 3mm inward and outward, and I want it to be corners, and I want to delete the original objects and say okay. So there's my outer piece. Now, and you see here how that put these kind of sort of in the middle of those. And now if in fact, let's take those two and group them. So now I've grouped my two outer offsets. And let's select the entire thing, hold the control button and deselect the outer perimeter. And will it let me do the offset? Yeah. All right. I do not want to do a 3mm offset here because that's the one that looks like the old derrick. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to push the limits by doing just a 1mm offset inward and outward. So it's going to be 2mm wide. And tell it to delete the original. And here you want to look and make sure you don't have any of this overlapping the outermost piece. And you want to make sure they're completely in the middle of those two offsets. You don't want any sticking out of either side. Make sure they're completely inside. And everything looks good. Delete the original, say okay. Now it's selected. So go ahead and hold your shift button and select your grouping that you did earlier and just weld that together. And now you have the beginnings of the tower. And let's see here. We're not going to be doing 5 hours at Carl because I'm going to put the slots and tabs on this, and that's about all we're going to get done here. But a lot of people aren't aware of the inner and outer and all those different things with the offset tools. And so I thought, okay, this would be a quick way, and you can see my design process as I go through, and I'm going to show you what more I've got done. But now we got to get the slots and tabs around this perimeter of this piece, and it's at an angle, and so that presents its own challenges. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that. Let's see here. To place the cross beams, you need to count ground level and to place evenly. Yeah, and I think I got them pretty close. And like I said, this is a work in progress and just showing you how I actually go through it. If Lightburn is this thing, it'd be nice to have a spacing tool. There is a spacing tool. There is a spacing tool, Miss Stacy. Watch this. Watch closely now. Are you paying attention? If I take this piece here, and I'm just going to Control D, duplicate it, move it over here. And then I'm going to ungroup it and select just that outer piece, move it over here, delete that. If I draw a straight line, and here where I did all that calculations and stuff a minute ago, I didn't have to do that because I didn't think. My brain wasn't fully engaged. The clutch was slipping a little bit. If you were here, you could smell it. So just draw a straight line, holding the shift button and draw a straight line. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put another one down here at the bottom. I'm going to start right there and come across. And one up here at the top. Up at the top. All right. And now if I select all of those, deselect the tower by holding Control and clicking on it and tell those to align center. There we go. And then now group those temporarily, and so we can align them center over the tower just for looks. Now ungroup everything. So now you can see I've got all these random lines in random places. If I select the entire thing, hold my shift key, just deselect the tower, and then my computer is freezing. My mouse just stopped. There we go. All right. And I always get confused on these. So it's not that one. So hit undo. I hate these images. They don't make no sense. But there you go. That right there, space those perfectly evenly all the way up through there. And that was this button up here. Distribute selected objects vertically with even spacing between them. So that right there would have done what I was trying to do with the calculator. And let's see here. And that would actually be a better deal than what I did. In fact, because it's so easy to do, come on, computer. Select, delete, select, group, send it to the center of the page. And now we're going to, actually, you don't ungroup it all. You don't need this top line, delete it. You don't need that bottom line, delete it. And on these, go to the edit tool. And I'm going to come to this node and I'm going to hit the letter T for trim. Hover over that one, T for trim. Come back to this one, T, T. Same thing, the letter T, select it again, the letter T, and the letter T. So now those are perfectly evenly spaced. Go back to your pencil tool, draw those angles out again. Right click to stop, come over here and start again. So thank you, Stacy, for asking that question, because that is a better distribution than what I had to begin with. And so now we'll do the same thing. Select just the outer piece, do a 6 millimeter or 3 millimeter inward and outward offset, 3 millimeter corners, and delete the original. Okay. Select the whole thing, hold the shift or the control button and deselect those, and do an offset of 1 millimeter inward and outward. And these need to be fully encompassed, and that looks good. Or actually, yeah, that's okay. That'll work. Actually, that one is not lined up properly, so I need to cancel that. Look to see if there's any others that are messed up. There's not. That's the only one I missed. So what I'm going to do here is just grab that one, go into node editing and grab that node and put it right there. Nope, it needs to go to the end of the line. And those all look good. So now that that's corrected, control button, deselect that, offset 1 millimeter, delete the original. Okay. I need to group the first 2 offsets, group those, hold the shift button, select that, and weld it. And there we go. So, again, thank you, Miss Stacy. That was a good suggestion that Lightburn should have a tool like that, and they do. I just fail to use it sometimes, and the brain, like I said, the clutch was slipping there. But that gave you an even distribution vertically. The key there, though, was I had to put a line at the bottom and the top. You set your end pieces in known positions. You know where the top's at, you know where the bottom's at. Then how many lines do you want in between them? Put as many as you want, and it doesn't matter where you place them. Then when you select them all and tell them to distribute vertically with even space between them, then it's going to distribute between that bottom set line and the top set line, and those will all be spaced out exactly where you want. So good question, and thank you for reminding me to use the tools that are at my disposal. All right, so there is the beginning of the tower. Now we need to do the slots and tabs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this and group it all together. And I'm now going to, well, if I look at my measurement, that says it's 357.08 millimeters, 357.08. I'm going to see if I can get this thing to snap. Oh, I thought I grouped those. Undo. Did I hit ungroup instead? Group. There we go. And my mouse is freezing. There we go. That makes it tough when you're trying to, and it's not want to snap to that. So I'm going to drag, and because I'm going to need this anyway, I'm going to drag this line out here from the side. I'll drag this and snap it. There we go. See, it's snapping to that. It's not snapping to my grid. All right. So now that that's snapped there, did I go higher? Yeah. Let's drag it down. I don't need it that high. Can't have it that high. I'm going to grab the tool. All right. Do it that way. Now I'm going to use Control 2. Y'all remember Control 2? I've been using the heck out of it in the last few designs. Control 2. Hit Control, the number 2. Select your, there's your instructions down here. Select the first point, the center of rotation. So it's going to be this corner piece right here. Then down here it says click and drag the second point where you want to rotate it from. So I'm going to come up here and grab this corner and rotate it over to that line there. So now I've got a straight line that I'm going to put my slots and tabs on. And if I go back to my tool and look at that line, 357.08. 357.08. I'm going to draw out a rectangle. It's going to be 3 millimeters wide. And I want to do let's see what 10 of them looks like. So if I bring this frozen mouse again, there we go. Bring that up here, snap it. And this one I'm going to make slot. So if I put it in position here, I know I want it to be 3 millimeters. And here is another time that we're going to use our anchor points up here. And I think someone mentioned in one of the Lightburn videos, they finally addressed this in one of their videos and just, they said, oh, it's the 9 control dots. They still don't really have a name for it. I coined the phrase probably close to a year ago that those are anchor points because that's what they actually serve as. we're going to anchor our selected piece wherever that button is selected. And if we look right now, I've got it at the bottom center, and I don't want to anchor, and I've got this tab or that slot selected. I don't want it anchored here at the bottom center because it needs to be anchored up here at this top corner. So I will just come up here and say, okay, anchor it right there. I know I want my 3 millimeter width. And what was that length? 357.08. Say, okay. So I'll come over here to my height. And since I've got my anchor point set to that top corner, that's not going to move. So I'm going to put in 357.08. And I wanted 10, so divide it by 20. All right. Now I've got that. I'm going to use my array tool, and I wanted 10 slots and tabs, so I doubled that and divided it by 20. So now that I've got that, that is the size 3 millimeters by 17.854. Come right down here to my grid array, and there's that number right there, 17.85. That's the total height. And you want to know how many rows you want to do. Well, I want my Y spacing to be the exact same as my total height. So 17.85. And how many rows? I want 10 rows. And if I scroll out, that gives me equal spacing down there and all the way up. Now, I don't like that funky little point right there on the tower. That's going to be problematic. So I'm going to group my results and select the results and say, okay. Now that just grouped that. And since this is straight up and down, it's still not technically this. If I tell it to go to center, it won't go to center because it's going to measure it from this height and this height. So I know it was 357.08. So I'm going to draw me another rectangle. Don't really matter about the width. Just say 357.08. And take this and dock it right there in that corner. Now I'm going to select that array, hold my shift button and select that square and tell it to align to its horizontal center. And now that'll move that down. So I'll have equal space there and equal space here and not interfere with the bottom, and all the spacing is going to look good. Now I'm going to do something different. A lot of times when you're designing slots and tabs with boxes, do I have one? Yeah, right here. One of your side pieces is going to be, you'll have two matching pieces, one that's got the slots and one that's got the tabs, right? Well, I'm going to design this one a little bit different. So it has a different finished piece, finished look on the final piece. Instead of designing two sides and then two sides that marry it to those sides, I'm going to design one piece 4 times. Huh? Yeah. I'm going to have slots on this side and tabs on this side. And you only got to have one of those shape. You know, 4 of that same shape. Slots, tabs, and it'll just wrap itself around. And it'll be a kind of a unique look because it's going to have, if you look here, tab, slot. They mirror each other all the way down instead of them being, and it breaks up that you don't see it of the pattern as much because it's not uniform. And I've not done that before, but I'm going to do it on this design and see how it comes out. So what I'm going to do, I've got this position where I want it. So first thing I'm going to do, Control D, duplicate it. And bring it over here out of the way. Now actually I need to select my tower first. That's A. Hold my shift button and select all the slots. That's B. And this Boolean tool is A subtract B. And it even tells you there in the description. Subtract one shape from another, A subtract B. And when you're using your Boolean tools, priority matters. It's what you select first is A, what you select second is B. So if you do it in the right order, A is what you want to keep and you want to subtract B. You don't want it. Then you can select A, B, and use that right over there. You don't have to go to your Boolean assistant. But if you're not sure and you haven't quite figured them out yet, you've got them both selected. Just hit Control B for Boolean, and it'll bring up your Boolean assistant. And if you don't remember that, it's under Tools. There's your Boolean assistant right there, and there's your Control B. Then it brings, here's your A subtract B. That is, come on, my mouse froze again. There we go. That tool is this tool. But if you selected them in the wrong order, like if I select this right now, come on. My mouse is, there we go. That shows exactly what I want it to be. My mouse is not cooperating. A, subtract B, done. All right. Now I need to add the tabs to this side. I've got my tabs because I just duplicated them and moved them over. And it would be nice if you could just hit them with that selected, if you could just hit the mirror button and it be at the, and it is there, that straight up and down, but that's the one with the slides on it. We need this side to be straight up and down. So that don't help us at all. So I'm simply just going to use my Control 2 again. Let's move this out of the way because we're going to need that again. I'm going to dock this bottom corner right up against that tool line, hit Control 2, select that bottom corner, and grab this and rotate it in position. And you can drag this up and down as far as you want it or down as low as you want it. I'll pull it up here where I can see it. It's not in the way of that grid. That's good. And now that that's oriented correctly, I'll move it over here a little bit and down a little bit and grab that tool, because that's what I'm using it as. Put it right there in that corner. Take this, and first I'm going to dock it right there in the corner. So now I know I've got it lined up on the side. Hold my shift key, select that tool, align to the vertical center, or horizontal center rather. And now that that's done, I will move that tool out of the way so my mouse is freezing. There we go. Get that out of the way. Now I can say A plus B and weld, and that welds all those up. And now I want to bring this back horizontal. So I'll just bring down one of those tool paths, bring this up here, dock it to that tool path, hit Control 2, mark that spot, grab that corner, and bring it back to that tool path. And now she's vertical again. Delete both of those. And now I'll cut out 4 of those, and they're going to snap one into another. And I'll have the beginnings of my tower. Now I'm going to select that, delete that. I'm going to, now this, I've already got the beginnings of a windmill saved, but none of the towers I like. I like this tower, and I'm going to save this tower, but I want to save this tower into my existing file. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have it saved anywhere, and I don't want to create a special folder for this just to save it. So I've got in my art library, I have a folder in the library that's called WIP, work in progress, WIP. So I'm going to save this into my WIP in the art library, then open my file design that I've already saved, and then import this from my art library into the existing folder, and then I can save it and be done. So I'm going to go to my art library, go to the very bottom, which is where my WIP is at, select this, and I'm going to, come on, my mouse is froze again. There we go. Select import graphic from project, and we're just going to use WM for right now for Windmill. Say okay, and now I can delete that. I'll go and open up the work that I've got going on, and here you can see I'm starting to get the. In fact, that needs to go away. I'm starting to get my tower and my base figured, or my tower figured out, and my fan figured out. This is the beginnings of the fan and the diameter of the fan. This is an accent piece that I'm going to glue on both sides of the weather vane. That'll come, there we go, like, well, getting in there close. Get it in there right. Well, are those ungrouped? Yep. Group though. No, they're not. There we go. So I'll put one of those on either side. That'll also help with a little bit of weight, just in case I don't have it exactly counterbalanced, or, you know, and it'll add some detail to it instead of it just being one-dimensional, because that doesn't look as good as that does. And also, when you look at the actual windmills, you'll have that piece sticking out on either side of the weather vane. So, you know, like I said, I do my research when I'm designing, folks. I don't just go at it, you know, willy-nilly. Back to Lightburn. So there's my weather vane, the weather vane, and I'm working on the fan itself. And this final design, my gold patrons will get it for free. Silver will get it for 80% off. Gold gets it for 60% off. This is going to be a lot of pieces, because each fan will be an individual piece that will be glued into those radials. And those, in order for them to look right and be proportionate, they're probably only going to be about 1 millimeter thick. I think, with slots in them that the fans are going to insert into. They're going to be 3 millimeters wide, but the profile on them is only going to be maybe a millimeter and a half. But they're going to be fragile. They're going to be very fragile. And then the fan, and you're going to have, I don't know how many blades were on that fan, because that's one thing I didn't look at yet. On that 8-foot fan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 or 19 fans there. And there's that, see how thin that radial is there? And there's another one on the inside with some cross members going on inside there. So the fan is going to be delicate. You know, there's the inner piece, and that's going to, because in order for, and I wasn't even showing you the right screen. There's the radial, outer radial, inner, and the cross members in there. But you're very, very thin, very delicate. And these are actually, looking at that photograph and these are huge compared to that photograph. But these are going to be mounted at a slight angle, like the fans on the actual windmill, the blades on the windmill. So it's going to be a delicate build. It's not going to be for the faint of heart or for the really fat, clumsy fingers, because there's going to be lots of pieces. And like I said, this piece will be one. There's the motor, if you will. These are just tools for designing. But that big block there, and I probably put a little hump up on the top to make it look more like the motor. Then that's the 3D piece that glues out on top of either side. And you can put an image on here if you have a favorite ranch or you want to. It's going to be the Fortner Farm or whatever. You can put your own little brand on there. But this is going to be a lot of pieces. 1, 2, 3, 20, 25. I'll probably be close to 30 pieces just in the fan alone on the windmill. But now I need to bring in this. So now I've got that in there. These are the ones that I didn't like. So I'm going to select all of them and delete them. Come on. Delete all those. Is that going to fit on my 12 by 12? Nope. It's not going to fit on my 12 by 12. So I have to get some special material for that. But that's, I think, and actually I could say Control D, duplicate that, because I've got it at the right proportions. If I wanted to, hold my control button and just shrink that down, and get that on my 12 by 12 piece. And I may do that. I don't know. We'll see. But say Control D, duplicate it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Hit my greater than to rotate it twice. Move it over. Select another one of those copies and just move it over. And someone asked me about nesting. I'm doing a video on nesting. I actually did one of those way back. Greater than twice to rotate it again. And there is a built-in nesting tool on Lightburn, but it's a third party, and it don't work half the time. And when it does work, it just takes forever to do it. So I can typically nest something like that faster than Lightburn can. And that wouldn't quite, it might work, might fit all on there. Do a little bit more spacing. Let's see here. I've been ignoring all the questions and comments, and there haven't been a lot of questions. Just ones, twos, and threes. So still 100 of you here, and we're hour 18 in. We've got about 15 minutes before we're at the 90-minute mark. Any questions, comments about this or anything else that comes to your mind? And I'm going to save this. Save. Done. All right. Questions, comments, anything from the peanut gallery? Oh, there we go. And again, it was froze up. There are some questions here. Could you have placed your slots and tabs on the rectangle? No, because you're going to skew them. Whenever you do that, it would not. Well, I'll just show you real fast. Switch over. If you draw out a rectangle and we put in some slots, do an array. Okay. A subtract B. Now, if I draw this straight line down here so we can see that that's there. So you see that's perfectly straight. Did that convert it to a path? Yes, it did. All right. So now if I do my middles or insert nodes, middle, 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 middle. I want to delete those. So there's one problem. Those nodes aren't going to move with it. Undo. Well, yeah. Because see, those, when you delete those two, it all moves in. those are not moving in. What you could possibly do, let's see, go undo. If you were to, we want to get to there. So we select that one and delete it. Then select just this one and just drag it. Nope, can't do that. Deselect it, hit undo, that puts it back. Now go to nodes and now select all those nodes and grab that node and move it in to there. That moved all of them in the exact same, and you don't have that. So that didn't work. And I was actually afeared that if it even did want to work, what would happen is if this come in and gave you the proper angle you needed, then these are either going to still be straight up and down, be perfectly vertical, or they would end up with something like slightly askew, kind of like that. But I don't see any way, Jeff, that you could put them in there first, because there's a whole lot of, and like I've said a million times, there's only one way to do things in Lightburn, and that's my way. Yes, there might be a way you could do that, Jeff. I just showed you really quickly the ways that I would think to try and do it, and then, but they didn't move like you wanted to, or at all. And by doing it, and Control 2 is so easy to use to get it back vertical on each piece, that it's crazy not just to do it that way. But yeah, there might be another way to do it. I'm sure there is another way to do it. Hey, Steve, I don't know if you're still here, but hey, Chris says if you offset 6 millimeters out, that in theory should stop gaps being created when offsetting the X's. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I did it in and out just because I was trying to maintain that proportion exact as much as possible. That's all. What Steve's in here. This reminds me of a project I did in high school shop class where I made a working miniature windmill complete with an electric motor to act as a small generator. If only had a laser back then. Yeah, because I think we're probably close in age. And back then, a solar calculator was all the rage. Oh, okay, good. My feed was froze. I didn't see all these comments. Jeff says, I bet eating all those popsicles to have the wood needed for the windmill was probably part of the fun. Yeah, because at that time, too, I don't remember any craft stores where you could go in, like Hobby Lobby and Michael's, where you could. But now there was some hobby shops where you could probably went and bought some popsicle sticks. Other than that, you were eating a lot of popsicle sticks. You know, orange stained windmill and purple stained windmills. Yeah. Pop says, hello, Steve, and Steven. A lot of Steves in the house. Chris says, I was looking at the tires behind you and knew something was different. Couldn't work it out, but it was the tabs and the slots offset. Yeah, it's just enough of a difference. And it's actually kind of cool because you're only designing one piece to do all 4 sides instead of having to design 2 pieces. And you can probably do that with boxes too. I hadn't thought about it, but since you only got 4 pieces, and on the side, on the top and the bottom, I will put those. I did these centered up so I could put a base on there and then put the windmill up top. But these, I tried to do the same thing. I tried to do off center, and I actually foobarred this in 100 different ways. It don't even line up correctly. But yeah, I liked the look of that, just to make it just something about, like you said, something was different, but you didn't know what. Man, I'm glad my comments were froze, because all I seen was a few 1, 2s, and 3s and nobody commenting. But now I'm seeing 5s and 7s and 6s. So I'm and this is a double-edged sword, folks. because when I get finished with this, I'm going to have this project for sale. But as I get this design process done, as I learn more and do more with the blades, and I figure out how I'm going to get all that set up, I'll show you that too. So I'm showing you how to do the design in Lightburn. You don't need to buy nothing from hobowithwood.com. So it's a double-edged sword teaching you guys all of my tricks, and then turn around and want to try and sell you something. Soaking in the rays, did you add width on both sides? I'm so far behind you in the comments. I don't know where at in the design you're asking your questions. I'm sorry. And this is where it might be nice if I did have a moderator that was monitoring the questions as I designed, but I don't. And I like the KISS method. We'll keep things simple. Just copy and paste it into Lightburn when you want it. Yeah, that instead of using the whip. It looks like the right side of the tower is wider. Well, that's because of the tabs. If we go back over here, you're absolutely right. This does look like this is wider than this, but once we duplicate that, Control D, duplicate it, slide that over here. Come on. Seriously? Oh, go to Select Tool, stupid. All right. And I'm going to drag that into that corner. And now I'll use Control 2 again. Control 2 to lock that into place and rotate that into position. And now, obviously, you're not going to be seeing it like that, but that would be filled. And these are going to be filled, obviously, with the other side. And so once it's together, it's not going to look that way. Because this one was done exactly like that I just designed. And when you look at that, it doesn't look like one side's any wider than the other. They look exactly like you would with your boxes with the regular slots and tabs, but you don't pick up on a pattern of slot opposite slot and tab opposite tab by having them alternate on the sides. It just breaks it up a little bit with the eye. And like Chris said, he seen something was off, but he didn't know what. Not off, but different. So yeah, the one singular piece does look like that ain't gonna work, but it works. Yeah, Bob, that's what I'll do on mine. I'll do the Hobo on there. Did that turn off? Yep. All right. Da, 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 da. And somebody did super things. I missed that. I don't know. Maybe I ain't got to it yet. Tom Cowley, thank you. Thank you for that, sir. Question mark. Could you have placed your was it asked twice? Because I don't think I went back. Could you have placed your slots and tabs on the rectangle first, then narrow the top to keep from having to rotate the slot? Yeah. So as I demonstrated there, Jeff, can you do it? Maybe. I don't know how, because I just showed you several ways it didn't work. Yeah, don't forget to redo the tabs since you resized it. Oh yeah, when I made it smaller. Yeah, and that's the last thing I do before I actually send my job to the laser. Because the variances that you'll have in your raw material, one's 2.7, the next piece you pick up is 2.9, and the next one's 3.1. I'll mic whatever I'm putting on there, and if I'm able to get all four pieces on one piece of material, I mic it, put it on the machine, then edit my resize my slots and tabs and selection. And for the 105 of you that are still here, we're right at the 90-minute mark. I want to show you this, and then I'll scroll down and get the rest of these questions. But this is crucial about slots and tabs when you're designing slots and tabs in Lightburn. This is extremely crucial because Lightburn cannot distinguish a slot from a tab. It doesn't know one from the other. If you have 4 nodes that are parallel to each other, horizontally and vertically, then that is either a slot or a tab, but it don't know which is which. So if we, I don't want to lose my spot there. All right. Go back over to Lightburn. So if I delete this one, and this was my original piece right here, and I'm going to need to ungroup it right now. But before I do, I'm going to select my nodes. And because everything is grouped, when I go to node editing, it's like it's deselected, but you don't see any nodes. And that's because you cannot see nodes when items are grouped or when they're part of a group. But everything is still selected. So if you just hit ungroup, everything is still selected, but now you can see all the nodes and everything. And if I zoom in close here, you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's 2 parallel nodes to those. And so those 4 nodes make a slot or a tab. But if those 4 go together and these 4 go together to make a tab, well, what about these 4? They can be a slot. Well, it's not a slot. It's a tab. But Lightburn doesn't know that. So for a few of you who have been watching me doing this, you've seen it before, but I'm guessing there's some newbies out there who haven't seen this. Right now, if I'm going to group, actually, when you're using the resize slots and tools tool, you cannot do that when with a group. So I'm going to, right now we've got just that piece there. And I'm going to go to, and let's check my height first and see what I've got. I said 3 millimeters, and that's what they are. So now with that selected, if I go to the tools and resize slots and selection, my old material thickness is 3 millimeters, and it needs to be 2.8 millimeters. And right now I'm changing my slot depth. Well, this side is all slots, and that's wanting to move correctly. But there are no slots on this side at all. This side is all tabs. But because Lightburn only sees 4 nodes, it says, okay, those could be slots, so we're going to change it. And if you do that, you will ruin your design. It will not work. It cannot work anymore. So what you have to do is eliminate Lightburn's ability to recognize that. So we go away from this, and I'm going to select all that again, just like it was. In fact, I wanted to show you this tip too. So I'm going to group it all back together and start over. There I've got a group. I go to nodes. You don't see any nodes. If you ungroup it, you've still got your entire selection together, but now you can see your nodes. And I need to make sure none of these are recognized as slots. In order to do that, you just have to put a node in here anywhere in between these 4 nodes so that it no longer recognizes this as a slot. Now, because of my ADHD, I like things to be uniform, so I'll use the letter M for middle and insert a node right there in the middle, so it just looks nice and neat. Come down here to the next one and hit M. And you don't have to be in the middle. You can be up here and hit M, and it's going to put a node in the middle of those 2 nodes. And I'll come all the way down doing that same thing, all the way down. And now those are going to be no longer considered slots. But now I've got a problem over here. I didn't show you, but this, when Lightburn looks at it, they're going to say, hey, that's a tab, but it's not. This is a slot. This is not a tab. So I've got to do the same thing over here. I'm going to put nodes in the middle of all of these. And now, since everything is still selected, I could just regroup it now, and I don't have to go back and select it all because it was all still selected. But now I need to do the resize slots and selection. So I've got to ungroup it. go to my selector tool. It's still all selected, but it's ungrouped. So now I can do the resize slots and selection. And when you look at your slot depth from 3 millimeters to 2.8, it only sees these as slots. And now I want to change my tabs, and it only sees these as tabs. It's not confusing one side from the other. And that simple little fix is how you make Lightburn recognize a slot from a tab. So, and I would say, okay, if I'm going to change it, but I'm not, I'm going to leave it there. But now, since it's all still selected, I can just hit group again. I don't have to reselect it. So when you're ungrouping things to do node editing or resize slots and selection, if you've got the entire thing selected and hit ungroup, don't unselect it and then select just the piece you want to edit unless you just absolutely need to. Keep everything selected, make your edits, and then all you got to do is hit regroup again. You don't have to go in and select it all again. You can save yourself some dragging unless you just need to work with one piece. All right, so back to the questions where we were at. I have a single line I want to convert to a path. Well, a single line is a path. It is the only thing in my work bed, and it doesn't work. I want to line stitch holes on. I have the line selected and convert to a path. That's great. It's because a line's already a path. A line is not a shape. A line is a path. So that's why you can't convert it, and the way to know is if you select something and you can see nodes, then it's a path. If you look at a circle or a square, anything that's drawn with the primitive tool, and you go to node selection, you won't see nodes. So if I draw out this and draw a square, draw out a circle, and then go to node editing, if I select, there's the circle, go to node editing, there are no nodes. And here's another tip, guys. People's like, you try and select that. I'm in node editing and you can't select it. It won't let you select it. Actually, you can. You just have to select right on it. You have to click directly on that line. But you see, there are no nodes there. And that's because neither one of these are paths. So if I right click, convert it to a path, and then go to node editing, now you can see nodes. But if I delete those and draw out a straight line, like he says he's got on his work pad, so I've got just a straight line, I've got that selected, I go to node editing, there's two nodes. It's already a path. So if you're having a problem creating something, it's not because it's not a path, it's because something else you're not doing, because it is already, a line is a path. So what's that little flower box holder behind you? Sorry, I got home from a fundraiser tonight. Moses, watch the replay. No, it's going to be a video coming this week. I did talk about it in the beginning. So if you go back and watch the replay, you'll see me doing the preface about what it is. I made that from my neighbor's fence that he tore down. Here's part of the picket. The fence picket is a cedar fence. And I chopped it all up and cleaned it up, ran it through a planer, and then made some holders, some pot holders, flower pot holders, if you will, out of some of the maple I've got, and put in, let me turn off your comment, put in 3 different succulents. This is a variegated string of pearls. This is Echeveria, and this is variegated jade. And these will really fill out. And if I don't know if you've ever had succulents or not, but this will take over. It'll fill out and be draping down, and I thought that would look really good. That's why it's on the bottom. And these will get a little bit bigger, and I liked the color variations that I went with there. You can't really see it in this light. But this design, this project, I will be doing a video this week showing how I made this from the raw materials of, I got a dog hair in there. Can you imagine me having a dog hair in something? There we go. And right now it's just sitting on an easel, and I'm going to make it where to be a wall hanger. And oh, that was my funny bone. Oh my goodness. I'm going to make it so it can either sit on the easel or wall hanger. But that'll be a video coming up this week. And like I said, if you want more about it, go back and watch the replay and you'll see. But it's coming. It's going to be a good video. Well, Jeff, that won't work either, because if you narrow the top, how are you going to move those pieces in with it? And when you move those pieces in, you're changing the angle, but those pieces are not going to change with it. They're not, I don't think. Again, it might work, but we're an hour 40 in, and I don't want to be the joke of the Clack Shack and Steve that, hey, there's Steve, another 5 hour live. But hey, man, 100 of you still here. So hey, just for giggles, it won't take long to see. You say don't subtract until you narrow the top. So hide that and go back. So if we draw a rectangle, middle. All right. So here's your problem. I need to delete that node and that node, and that's going to bring that in. But if I try and select all of that like that, I'm in node editing. So you can't select that array. And so if I bring these in and delete, you don't hit the delete button. If you hit the delete button, it'll all go away. Select just those nodes and hit the letter D. So those didn't move in with it. And see how they are, perfectly perpendicular. They're not at the angle. If you knew exactly what that angle was, and one tool I thought would be nice to have is you've got the ruler right here, and let's see, what all does it tell me? It tells me second link starting in. Oh, there it is. Angle 79.8. It does have a protractor right there. So right there, 79.8 degrees. So now that I've got that 79.8 degrees, if I say cancel, and Jeff, we might both learn something here. Rotate this to 79.8 degrees. Nope. Undo that. That didn't work. What's 79.8 from 100? My calculator, come on. 20.2. So rotate this negative 20.2. Hey, I think we might be on to something here. Let's say duplicate that and rotate it back. So 20.2 and 20.2. And now move that. No, that's still not the right angle. Still not the correct angle. And somebody may have already put in the comments, but there, if I go back to the ruler and I select just that segment, it tells me there that the angle, if I can get that only, tells me there the angle is 79.8, but that didn't work, and the 20.2 didn't work. I don't know what the angle is from here to here. But if you knew what that angle was, then you could do your array, rotate that angle, and then you could you could, let's get rid of this one that's grouped up. If I bring that here, I don't know the angle right now. I would say control 2. I'm going to lock that in up there and grab this one and bring it in here. So that's at the correct angle. It's not at a right angle. That's the correct angle. But now if I do that and select that and do that, okay, that's put it in the right position, but it's now no longer married up. That would be close, but close, when you're doing slot and tabs, you don't want to do close if you were having to replicate that position on the other side. You could do this, though. You could draw down a toolbar so you could match it right there. Yeah. So, yes, like I said, there's always more than one way to do things in Lightburn. And that's something that could be figured out and worked. I don't know which way would end up being easier. If you knew exactly what that angle was and you could just tell it to rotate to that exact angle, and then when you told it to go to center, that's still going to be an issue, though, because if it's married to this top up here, then you tell it to go to center and it actually needs to be lowered, it's just going to lower it down here and not keep it married up or parked against the border. But it can be done. It could be done. Pop says, I must be older. We didn't have calculators. We still had slide rules. Oh, hey, well, I know engineers today that still prefer their slide rules. And Burn Carb says, hey, we had abacus. So and that's why I say, when I lovingly say that the majority of my viewers are a bunch of old farts. And it blows my mind that it is the old farts, myself included, who are embracing this technology and running with it. And when I went to the florist today, because I just had these potted for me today, and one of the guys working there, he's like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? I'd love to do that. And I said, well, it's, a laser, computer controlled laser. And his sister was standing there and she just starts horse laughing. He's like, oh, I'd love to do that. And she just horse laughed him. I said, what? And she said, he ain't got enough sense to be able to operate the remote control on the TV. He ain't going to use a computer to control nothing. And he's talking like he's wanting to, and he's a younger guy. And he just, but all you old farts out there are just embracing it and running with it. I love it. Look at this, 5s and 6s. I love seeing that too. And Chris says we used to pile rocks. Tabs should have been in center of upright. Yeah, I'm not, and I don't know where you were at, or I have had the darndest time with the slots and tabs tool. Have to go back and watch Steve's video on how to get Lightburn to regular. Well, maybe I explained it by the time you've seen this. I don't know when you commented on that versus when I was showing that extra node in there. That's how you do it. What settings should I use for the white space? Yeah, I think that's kind of a personal preference kind of thing. I seen Clack talking about that the other night and how he eliminates white space. And if you're doing a large image or something and it's got a lot of white space, then and you really want to cut down. And if you're doing production and you're doing 20 of these and you can cut out all your white space or cut down your white space and cut down your time in half and you got 20 of them, you might save half a day's work. But if you got one piece and you're talking about the difference of 3 minutes versus 5 minutes, I don't. I've never fooled with it myself. Because I'm not in production work, and that's where cutting out all that would save you a tremendous amount of time. Because when I'm typically when I'm engraving, I'm designing, and so I'm busy, and I'm not worried about that. And I honestly, there have been times, and there are, if you're doing a border and you're not wanting to have all that white space in the middle, you can do the offset fill where it's just going to fill just the perimeter. Some people don't like that, and they say, oh, it leaves a funky pattern. Well, you can change that by changing your line interval. If your line interval is too large and you do an offset fill, you'll see those lines in there, and some people don't like that. You can also increase it to create a really large void and create a unique look with an offset fill. Or if you decrease it, then it should eliminate those lines. And even going to a much smaller LPI, your line interval, because you're doing it in an offset fill, it's going to do it really quickly, and that'll save you a ton of time. But I don't find white space being something that's been problematic for me, except for borders, and that's when I'll use offset fill. And and generally, if I don't, sometimes if I know that I'm going to have that irregular pattern, I'll exaggerate it and make that part of the design. I will make it more noticeable for having a larger line interval, so it creates a unique look to it. And there's the super thanks. I just haven't got there yet, but thank you, Tom. If you're still here, it's greatly appreciated. And I'm guessing this has to do with the moderator comment. If I can teach, she might know how to read because she fully understands English. She understands the English language. She has a better working vocabulary of half the people I used to employ. And she responds to the English language. You tell her no, she understands no. Let's see here. Could you help when I do virtual array? My second square is rotated. Dale, if something's happening rotating in your virtual array, why on virtual array your second square is rotated? I don't do a whole lot with virtual arrays. I've done them. I haven't run into that. First thing I would think of is you're having any kind of rotation, make sure that when you're in your array at all, make sure that reverse direction. I don't know, create virtual array. I don't know why that would be doing that. I've never seen that. And what I was thinking of is in the circular array, you have this rotate objects button. So if it's a circular array and that's turned on, that's going to rotate. But if you're doing a grid array and you've got something rotating, right off the top of my head, I don't know. I've never seen that before. So I don't have an answer for you on that, Dale. Are you using the grid array and having that rotation, or a circular array and having that rotation show up? The narrow part of the sides look different under the tab and under the slot. And I think that you may be referring to the same comment we just talked about me doing the variation, all tabs versus all. Yeah. But once you assemble it, you don't see that. Don't you have to put tabs on the inside of the original frame instead of the outside to keep the 3 millimeter width? Don't you have to put tabs inside? I don't know if you're referring to me doing slots on one side and tabs on the other of the same piece versus doing the two different, but that was just a design choice. I'm not sure if I follow you correctly, but if it's just about making one piece instead of two pieces, it's just a design choice here on this piece. Yeah, and Chris, I like Chris's comment there. It says a ruler is the enemy of optical illusions. Yep. I do not like the third-party nesting they did, and be careful when doing cuts when nested, because they may end up shaving off more than one piece, especially if you're doing switch back over. If you are doing any kerf, if you've added kerf to your design and then you start nesting your pieces, the kerf does not show up when you're nesting it. And if you put them too close together, then you'll cut out one over the other. But if you do a preview, it'll show you that. And I'll show you that real quick. And we're not, I promise we're not going 5 hours. We're coming up on 2. We're getting ready to wrap this up. But Stacy, if this might help you too. If you're on occasion, you're doing a kerf, let's grab this right here. And I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, duplicate it. And I'm going to rotate it, because this right here is a perfect example of it. If I nest those right up against each other, and I'm using my eliminate overlapping lines, that should cut out and work perfect and cut that center line one time. But if I have added kerf to this, and I go in and look at the preview, here they're just right up against each other. But if you look at the preview, and you go in tight, you can look, you see 2 lines now, because the kerf is coming over and past. Here it's coming out and over and past. So that would actually be a detriment. So if you're nesting together and you're adding kerf, definitely do not put them against each other, and make sure that you're allowing enough space so that when you look at them in preview does show you kerf. And here you see you got plenty of room to cut them out. And that's another thing, guys, that when I'm doing slots and tabs, the last thing I do before sending the job to the laser is miking and setting my slots and tabs and with the resize tool. And then before I hit the send button or the start button, I look at the preview and look and make sure everything is one. If there's let's go back. Let's do let's go to Hobo. Let me get my logo. Add that, and I know you can't see the screen, but right now you don't need to see the screen for what I'm doing. I want to delete that, and all of that, and that. I didn't want to do that. That and that. Here's another red flag to watch out for. Group this together and put it up here in the top. And like I said, you don't need to see this. I just want to set it up so that you guys can see what's happening here. And then go over here and tell that to do that and say, okay. And no, cancel that. And then, come on, stupid. Preview. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. All right. Another thing to watch out for. If you are engraving, if you have the MK2 and you're engraving at really high speeds, because this thing will rock and roll, it'll jet. You have to be aware of your overscan. And that's something else that you can see if you use your preview as the last step before you send your job. You're looking to make sure none of your parts are overlapping, and then you want to check for any roadblocks or problems with overscan. And what I've done is I've got these 2 pieces that are going to cut out, and I've got my logo that's going to engrave on this top corner right there. And if you go to the preview, you can see that everything's not overlapping each other. But on your preview, this green line that goes around the outside, that's your work area. And you see here, if you've got your traversal moves turned on right here, if you turn it off, you don't see that. So be sure you have your traversal moves turned on. And then if this is the overscanning, that if your laser is going so fast, you need to allow it time for it to slow down. Well, here you can see that this overscanning is going past the work area. And what would happen is as you're engraving, it'll be fine until it got to right there, or there. And as soon as it hits that, you're going to hit a hard stop and your laser is going to go crash, boom, bang. Everything's going to come to a grinding halt and you're going to get, what in the world? And you can always lower your speed and reduce your overscanning, and then use the scan tool to go back and scan to that place where it crashed. After you rehomed it, do the preview. In fact, I should go over here to preview. If it crashed, you send your laser to home, and then you come in here to preview, and you grab this bar and you slide this bar down, and then you can zoom in here. We'll go in real tight, and then you can find where it went over right there. So there, it doesn't look like it didn't. So there, you know that engraving happened, but the next line is where it crashed. So then you would say, start here, right there. Click start here. And when you click that, it'll ask you about like start your engraving here from this position and say yes. And then if you've slowed it down, changed your overscanning, you can send that laser from home right back out to that position and pick up and not have ruined or lost your project. And we're 2 hours and 2 minutes. I'm going to get to the bottom. Thank you, Midnight. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Okay, I get it. It won't work. No, Jeff, it's not that it won't work. It won't work the way that you and I had hoped it would work. But I think with enough of your questions and enough of trial and error, I think I have figured out another way to make it work. But it won't work as simply as you had hoped it would work. I must remember to add those extra nodes. Yeah, that is a lifesaver when you're doing your thing with the slots and tabs. Hey, Dimitri, late, but hey, better than never. And I've already told everybody to drop your to hit you in Facebook. Somebody had a problem with if you're still here. Someone had a problem with the limit switch on their MT2, and they needed to get some stuff done. And I'm like, hey, I'm not the technical guy. I'm great with Lightburn, but I'm not great with technical part of computers or technical part of lasers. But I know who you need to go to. Go to the Lightburn or go to the Facebook group, Rolly Automation Facebook group. Tag Dimitri, and he will straighten you out. So you've already got your shout out. So now you've had two. So enough of you. You put up a video showing you've already got your XW. Shame on you. Teasing people like that. That's just wrong. Change your 9 dot to middle. Oh, you know what? That might have been, no. I don't think that would have been an issue with if you were thinking about trying to marry it up and keep it alignment, because there you were using alignment tools. And the only time the anchor point works is when you're changing the dimensions of a piece. Then the anchor point is really relative. But I don't right now. I can't think of a way that changing the anchor point would make any difference in moving those slots around. Well, good night, Pop. 90 degrees from 78 degrees. Okay. And like I said, and that's just a matter of figuring out that right, or that, I keep saying that right angle, figuring out that correct angle. I think that last attempt, you could make that process work if you get the correct angle and tell it to rotate that. And then, but the problem with that though, is then you're getting it, marrying it at the exact same point. You need to bring that toolbar down from the top so that you can marry your slots with in the same spot that where you would have your tabs. By doing it the way I did it, because two things about me, folks. This really is a simple mind. It really is. It's pretty simple. And I also like to keep things simple. That's why I say I love the KISS method. So when I look at something and I try to figure out how to do it, how to attack it, and I've said this before, I try to attack it in the fewest steps that this brain can do it in, because I'm lazy but I'm efficient. I want it right. That's why, the first thing I did before I started my design is I went and looked for the physical dimensions of an actual honest to God windmill, because I want the proportions right. But for me to get those slots and tabs in perfect alignment on either side, the simplest way to do that was just to make sure that everything was perpendicular, and the Control 2 makes it perpendicular. So it's real simple. You draw that toolpath over, make it perpendicular, put your slots and tabs in, flip it, so that was the simple way for this simple mind to make it happen. Yes, there's other ways to do it. And yeah, we may have begun to stumble on another way to do it, but I don't know. I don't know that it's going to be any simpler, but just another way. There might be fewer or might be more steps. Yeah, everybody's saying subtract from 90, subtract from 90. Yep, 12 degrees. Yep. Unfortunately, I don't have, like I said, the ability. I don't see the comments populate as I'm doing my design, so I have two different screens going on. And yeah, Clack, it shows the angle, but it wasn't the correct angle. It was saying 78 degrees, but it needed to be subtracted from 90. And the degree, it actually would have been, I think, like everybody's saying, I think it was 12 degree would have been, Dimitri says 12 would have been the correct angle that would have generated the outcome we were looking for. And I think that process, by doing it that way, I want to explore that some more. That might work. I don't know if it's going to be, again, I don't know if it's going to be simpler. Yeah. And like I said, it's there. It's just not it wasn't the correct angle. And Stacy says, yeah, he did use the measure tool. So you must have come in after I had used the measure tool and then got rid of, you must have come in right after that, if you're even still here. Yep. Looking for last comments. Maybe the random button is checked on the array tool, which might explain the square being turned. Well, the random array on the grid should not have affected anything in the, it should not have, because he was talking about his virtual array. And that the random rotate in the grid array doesn't have anything to do with the same type of rotation as the rotate button in the circular array. But it's not impossible that could be a gremlin that's affecting the virtual array. So check that and make sure that it's not checked, causing your problem in virtual arrays. And if it is, it's something that needs to be brought to Lightburn's attention, because it shouldn't be. Okay. Question. Yes, the frame has a 3 millimeter in and out outline. Won't the tabs and slots need to be added on the inside like you did for the slot side? The material, I think I understand what you're asking, Sharon, but no, I've set the slots and tabs to the material thickness. And since the slot is as deep as the material is thick, it's going to fill when you put them all together. So I'm not quite following your thought. And this is and could be just a simple right brain, left brain. I'm not following your thought process and your question completely. It's not registering with me about what you're asking. And it's just again, it could be a part of the simple brain. I'm not following your lack of understanding what I've done, but that's again maybe a failure on my part. But like I said, I've already done them. The design works as I did it, but I'm not following I'm not following your failure to follow. Does setting kerf in Gravini and then adding kerf in Lightburn create an issue? Yes. You've just doubled it. So I don't add any kerf in any of my box designers. I do it all in Lightburn. Because if you add kerf in Gravini, if you set it and you say I want it to be 1 inch, but I want to have a 10% kerf, whatever it is. Well, now it's 1.1 inch and not 1 inch. Now you bring it in Lightburn and now you say I'm going to add the kerf for my laser. Now it's 1.1 plus your additional kerf you just added. So yeah, don't add it in 2 places. And was it Carl? Let me go to my email real fast. And guys, I'm going to get to the bottom of the questions. Is this it? No, not that one. No, it was Jim Hamilton. Jim, if you're here, I apologize that I have not addressed your question. Jim had a question about images and well, let's see here. Go back. There we go. Go away. I want that. Jim had an issue where he was trying to engrave an image and he was getting some less than desired results. I cleaned up what he sent me and made it workable, but it was a lot of work because it was not an image from the vendor he was trying to make a product for. If someone's paying you or you've got a job, you're taking somebody and they're wanting their logo put on it, insist if you can, as politely as possible, that they provide you a high resolution image for you to work with. Because if you have to go and grab something off the internet, you bring it in and then you try to scan it and now you want to go from an image to and convert it to an SVG. Well, Clack had this the other day where he even reduced it, hoping that by reducing the image and then doing the trace, it would help clean up and keep it from being so pixelated. But somebody said that really doesn't work. I don't want to mess with low resolution images. If somebody sends me that and then they send you crap and they're expecting you to make a chicken pot pie out of it, it ain't going to work. They're going to get a chicken crap pie. Okay. And I don't recommend trying, if them say, oh, well, can you just recreate it? Well, you might kind of could or get close, but if they're expecting perfection, what is that commercial that's out there now? Is it Indeed certified? Or that print company they got? Are you Indeed sure or whatever that commercial is? If they're expecting perfection, but they're not giving you perfection to work with, maybe you don't want to do that. But I did not get a chance, Jim, to address all that, and we're over 2 hours. I'm not going to be able to get to it tonight. But insist on a high resolution image to start with. And if they have an image that they're printing and using an artwork and logos on their name tags or their printers, their papers, whatever, they've got it. they have, and if they don't have it, whoever's printing it for them does. They can get it. Looking for question mark. I got here late. Can you start over? No. Yes, I did. You put the tabs on the inside and slots on the outside. Yes, I did. I did it on purpose. That was a design choice. I've got one piece of that windmill that I'll cut out 4 times, and they will fit together perfectly. And John, you must have been either asleep or late to the conversation, because that was an intentional design choice. And this is, that one fell over. This is the first one I did, and it's done that way. And when you look at it, they're offsetting. So up here you've got an uncut. Here you've got so this is a tab, and that's a slot. Then that's a tab, and that's a slot, and that's a slot, and they alternate instead of being directly opposite each other. So it just breaks it up, and it's not as glaring as a box with slots and tabs when they're directly opposite each other. This was a design choice. No, I'm sharing. I'll accept it. I'll accept that there is a failure. There is a failure to communicate, and then I'll accept my part of that. Okay. No, absolutely not. All right. So I think I've gotten to the bottom. Is there anybody else questions relative to what we've done tonight? And then if not, we're going to wrap it up in a nice pretty ball and put a bow on it. Okay, John says, that's not what I'm talking about. Measure the width of both sides from inside to outside. I think yeah, just what Chris said. They're saying you have 3 millimeter plus the tab, causing it thicker on one side. And that, Sharon, that might be what you're talking about. But I've done this and it works. But that was yesterday. I think I know. I think I know. I think I know. I think you're right. Sharon, I think this is where the failure to understand, because there's an issue there. And I think I know what I did yesterday, because this is part of my problem with my brain now. And this is not me being funny. My brain, I cannot be distracted. I've got to finish what I'm doing, because I won't always remember what I did when I did it. And what I think I did, because now when I look at this and I measure this, I swear that's what I did, but it don't look right. It don't look. Well, you still learned a whole bunch of things, but I think the problem there is, and I didn't do different offsets. I didn't do an offset for one side and offset for the other. I subtracted one and added to the other, which is what I. But this don't look like that, unless it's just an optical illusion, like everybody's talking about. I'm really lost now, guys. Y'all, yeah, John, I'm. Jeff says go look at the pics I sent. All right, where's your email inbox? Jeff, image. Yeah, I see that. And let's see, what's your other image? Yeah, I see that. Yeah, but I swear. And guy and Tom, I'm just now seeing your email, and you emailed me a couple of days ago about doing that roller coaster enthusiast nameplate. And with everything that's happened in this past week between the RV flooding, the tornadoes, and all that, that went to the bottom of my thought process and then out of my mind. I forgot all about it. I ain't even gonna lie. I forgot about it. But now my brain is pickled about how this worked, because I see what you're saying now. Because this doesn't look like that, but I did not. These are alternating. I'll have to look at it again. And it's just a matter of the positioning and where I welded them up, I'm sure. You know what I might have done is, because like I showed you earlier, Lightburn doesn't know a slot from a tab. Lightburn doesn't recognize one from the other. You have to tell Lightburn what's a slot and what's a tab. I may have done those all as slots, and that would have kept the spacing correct. But then, in using the node editing, I just simply changed and told it, this is not a slot, this is a tab. That might have been what I did. I'll know tomorrow, because this is going to be progressing along with the windmill and the motor and the vane. But that might have been what I've done, is whenever I did the node editing, like I showed you, I may have elected at that time to designate this side as slots and this side as tabs. And by doing them, that's the only thing I can figure right now. Come on. The stupid thing keeps freezing up. Yep. And we got there. At least I got there. You got there, and Sharon got there. But I got there. Y'all crazy. You said we're already down from 105 to 84 viewers. We're not going. We ain't going to push this. And Steve says, all of them are the same. So regardless, when you put it together, it's going to create a tower. Yeah, but this doesn't have it. That one side is going to be wider by 3 millimeters. And the only thing I can figure is it had to be the way that I designated it in the nodes. That's the only thing that comes to mind right now. And Kevin says, we're learning all this stuff together, which is what makes this channel so great. Hey, look, guys, I'm going to show you my screw ups, because if I didn't show you my screw ups, half of my video would be gone. You made a I don't know what it is, a 6 millimeter leg on the tower, and then add 3. Yeah, but I had to get the offset, and that's what I said. I didn't do varying offsets. The offset is what the offset was, is which made it a 6 millimeter wide piece. You got to have that, because on the one side that's got the slots, you want to have, once your tab snaps into that slot and it's a 3 millimeter wood, now it's going to be a total of 6 millimeters wide. So you want 6 millimeters. But on the other side, where I did them on the external, the exterior, and then welded them to it, then that did make it the 9. But this doesn't do that. So I must have done them internally and then use nodes to make it, instead of a slot, a tab. And I must have just been in the zone when I did it, because this is perfection. Everything about this is right and it works, except I don't like how thick the cross members are. I wanted them much, much thinner. And I didn't like how wide it is here versus, the proportions were off. But the slot and tab variation worked. It worked perfectly. And it's got 6 millimeters on both sides. So I did do one things differently, and I'll have to figure it out. Yeah, and I don't think this is an optical illusion. This is, because when I mic it, this side is 6.1, and mic this one, and it's 6.1. They're exactly the same. And doing it as I've got here, they would not be. In fact, let's just, or wait a minute. No, let's look at the measuring tool. Auto. That's 6 millimeters, but this one is going to be 9 millimeters. So yeah, no, it's not an optical illusion. I just, by putting them on the exterior, the external part of the offset, that wasn't what I did, obviously, here. I had to have affected the offset with the node selection. Bob's, ever since I heard your Rolling song, now it seems like everyone is getting a song. Bob, I noticed that too. I noticed that too. And hey, what do they say? Imitation's the best form of flattery or whatever. Let's see here. Yeah, and Brad says he noticed that. And Fern Cave says, yeah, they're not all screw ups, they're learning opportunities. Yeah, and that's right. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Let's see here. I think you did an ad to create the slots on the other side instead of taking away material. Now, the one side is perfect. The slot side is exactly right. because I just measured it. It's 6 millimeters. The other side should be 6 millimeters as well, and it's not. It's 9. But I think if I would have, because I showed you where I put the M in the nodes to designate a slot from a tab. I think that's what I did, was did them exactly the same, subtracted the material from both sides, but then used the node editing to say this is a slot, but the opposite one of this one is a tab. Okay. Yep. At least you know we're paying attention. That's right. And we're all learning stuff as we go. No, we're not. We're not doing 4 hours. We are ending it right here at 2 hours, 30 minutes. And I'm going to check that process before I leave and go to the house. But I'm calling it a night. I still haven't drained the belly of my RV yet with the weather that comes through, with the tornadoes and all the rain and the thunderstorms. I've got the RV dry. It's no longer flooded, but the belly of the RV, the belly I've got an Arctic insulation in there. So it's set to go to Alaska if I want to, but all of that insulation was soaked. So all that wet insulation is now under the belly of the RV and soaking wet. So if you look at my RV, it looks like it's pregnant. The whole belly is just sagging. So now, can't do anything tomorrow. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. But between needing to make videos for you guys, I need to find time to cut the grass, get out there, remove the underbelly, pull all the insulation out, replace all the insulation, put the underbelly back in, finish weed eating, finish the videos, upload it for next Tuesday. This is a full-time job. So, and it is pretty much all I do. Okay, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. And I will confirm whenever I elaborate more on this windmill and the more designs with it and getting that exactly how I did that, because it is a very unique look and giving you just one piece to design instead of having to make 4 or 2 pairs. It don't drain. It's just pretty much, because what would drain is already drained. It's just like a big wet sponge right now. It's just wet. It wouldn't drip. It's like, wet sponge sits there, it evaporates eventually, but it's not to the point that it's dripping anymore. All right. Again, you know what? Just for the heck of it, since you brought it up and everybody wants to be a hobo, let's turn off the loop and let's play. I have 2 of them too. Oh, and you know what? Don't put this out there because the people have asked me about this. If you're getting your Rolly, use my link. It'll help me out and let Leo know that, yes, you're paying attention to Hobo. HoboWithWood.com/Rolly. And it's Patreon.com/HoboWithWood if you want to support this channel. Super thanks are still always appreciated. I'm not hitting you up for them, but they're greatly appreciated. HoboWithWood.com, Patreon.com/HoboWithWood, and HoboWithWood.com/Rolly. You guys have a good night.